Dr. Kim Soo-jin wiped the sweat from her forehead as she carefully brushed away the last bits of alien soil from the strange crystal, the twin suns of Kepler-44, to be beat down on her back, making her work even harder in the thick air of this distant world. For 3 long months, she and her team had been digging through these ancient ruins, hoping to find something that would help them understand the old civilization that once lived here. The crystal was different from anything they had found before. It was perfectly smooth and seemed to glow with a soft blue light from deep inside. When Soo-jin touched it, the crystal felt warm, almost alive. She had seen many alien artifacts in her years as an archaeologist, but this one made her heart beat faster with excitement. "Professor, you need to see this," Park Min-ho called out from across the dig site. Her young assistant was standing next to the main computer, his face pale and his hands shaking as he pointed at the holographic display floating above the machine. Soo-jin quickly stood up, her knees cracking from kneeling on the hard ground. For so long, she walked over to Min-ho, noticing how quiet the rest of her team had become. The other workers had stopped digging and were all looking in their direction with worried faces. The holographic text was written in the common galactic language, the same one used by all the major alien civilizations for official records. Soo-jin had learned to read it years ago during her training, but she had never expected to see words like these: Earth species, extinct, threat level, neutralized, primitive civilization eliminated before achieving interstellar capability, date of termination, galactic standard year 2387, method, orbital bombardment and biological warfare, confirmation, complete planetary sterilization achieved. The words seemed to burn themselves into Soo-jin's mind as she read them, over and over again. Her legs felt weak, and she had to grab onto Min-ho's shoulder to keep from falling down. This could not be real. This had to be some kind of mistake or joke. "Professor, what does this mean?" Min-ho whispered, his voice barely loud enough to. Here Soo-jin looked around at her team. There was Dr. Lee Hyun-woo, the geologist who had helped them understand the layers of rock they had been digging through. There was engineer Choi Mi-young, who had built the machines they used to carefully remove the artifacts from the ground. There was communications officer Park Jae-ho, who kept them in contact with their ship in orbit. All of them were human. All of them were very much alive. "It means," Soo-jin said slowly, "that according to these records, we should all be dead." The team gathered closer around the holographic display. More text appeared as the ancient computer system continued to translate the information stored in the crystal. The records showed detailed reports about Earth, describing human technology, human cities, and human space missions. But every report ended the same way, with the complete destruction of human civilization. But Professor Mi-young said, "My grandmother told me stories about the old days on Earth, about the green forests and blue oceans, about the great cities with buildings that touched the sky. She said our people left Earth because of a great disaster, but she never said we were all killed." Soo-jin nodded. She had heard similar stories from her own family. The official human history book spoke of the Great Exodus, when humans had been forced to leave Earth because of environmental problems and wars. Some ships had made it to other star systems, where they built new colonies on distant worlds, but the human colonies had always been small and hidden. Trying to avoid attention from the powerful alien civilizations that controlled most of the galaxy. "The aliens think we are extinct," Soo-jin said, her voice getting stronger as she began to understand what this discovery meant. "They think they wiped us out completely hundreds of years ago. They have no idea that some of us survived and spread across the stars." Jae-ho, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. "Professor, if they thought we were dangerous enough to destroy our entire planet, what will they do if they find out we are still alive?" The question hung in the air, like a dark cloud. Soo-jin looked at the crystal again, then at the holographic records floating above them. She thought about all the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, hiding on remote worlds and asteroid bases, pretending to be something other than what they really were. "We need to send a message to all the colonies," she said finally. "Need to know what we have found here. They need to know that the aliens have been lying about what happened to Earth." Min-ho moved to the communication equipment, his fingers dancing over the controls as he prepared to send an encrypted message across space. "What should I tell them, Professor?" Sujin looked up at the alien sky, thinking about her people scattered among the stars, living in secret and fear. She thought about Earth, their lost homeworld, and about the aliens who had tried to erase humanity from history. "Tell them," she said, "that it is time to stop hiding. Tell them that the galaxy thinks we are dead, but we are very much alive. And tell them that it is time to remind everyone that humanity will not be forgotten." Captain Lee Dongwoo was drinking his morning coffee when the red light on his communication panel started blinking. The bridge of the Generation ship New Seoul was quiet in the early hours, with only the night shift crew monitoring their long journey through deep space. Dongwoo had been captain of this massive ship for 15 years, guiding over 50,000 people who called it home as they traveled between distant star systems. The encrypted message came through on a frequency that had not been used for over a decade. Only the most important communications used this channel, and Dongwoo felt his heart start beating faster as he opened the transmission. Dr. Kim Soo-jin's face appeared on the holographic display, her expression serious and worried. "All human colony leaders," she began, "I am sending you information that will change everything we thought we knew about our history. Please gather your senior staff and prepare for emergency protocols." Within minutes, Dongwoo's bridge was filled with his most trusted officers. Lieutenant Choi Yuna, his communications expert, worked quickly to decode the rest of the message. Engineer Kim Taman checked their ship's security systems to make sure no one outside could listen to their conversation. Medical officer Dr. Park Sun, he joined them, along with military advisor Colonel Yoon Cung-J. When the full message finished playing, the bridge was completely silent. The holographic display showed the ancient alien records that Soo-jin had discovered, with the terrible words about Earth's destruction floating in the air before them. Dongwoo read the text 3 times before he could believe what he was seeing. He said finally, his voice steady, despite the shock he felt inside, "Send the emergency signal to all known human settlements. Use the old codes from the Exodus Protocol. Everyone needs to see this." Yuna's fingers moved quickly over her control panel, sending the encrypted message to dozens of hidden human colonies across the galaxy. The signal would take days or even weeks to reach the most distant settlements. But Dongwoo knew that every human leader would drop everything to respond once they received it. The first reply came from Commander Park G1 at Mining Station. Alpha 7 in the Vega system. His message was short but clear. Received and understood. We are not alone in this. Commander Park's facility was disguised as an automated asteroid mining operation. To any alien ships that passed by, it looked like nothing more than machines pulling valuable metals from space rocks. But hidden inside the largest asteroid were 3,000 humans who had been living there for over 20 years, slowly building their own small civilization. Dr. Yang Haijin responded next from her research station deep inside the Orion Nebula. Her team of scientists had been studying the strange energy patterns in the nebula for years, using the colorful gas clouds to hide their activities from alien sensors. "We have suspected something like this for a long time," her message said. "The alien species we have observed seem to fear rapid technological development." More responses came in over the following days. Captain Oh Min-jen reported from the passenger ship Busan Dream, which had been carrying refugees between human settlements for decades. Engineer Lee Sora confirmed receipt from the hidden shipyard built inside a dead moon orbiting a gas giant. Even the small farming colony on the distant world of New Jeju sent word that they had received the message as the human leaders shared information. Clearer picture began to form. The aliens had not just destroyed Earth randomly. They had been watching human development for years, studying how quickly humans created new technologies and spread to new worlds. When human space exploration became too advanced too quickly, the aliens had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to survive. "They call themselves the Hegemony," reported Dr. Yang from her hidden research station. "I have been intercepting their communications for months. They are a group of the oldest alien civilizations in the galaxy, and they believe it is their job to control which younger species are allowed to develop, and which ones must be stopped." Colonel Yoon, who had studied military history his entire life, understood the implications immediately. They have been doing this for thousands of years, he told the emergency council meeting that Dongwu had organized. Whenever a new civilization shows promise, the hegemony decides whether they are safe to be allowed to continue growing, or if they are too dangerous and must be eliminated. The more they learned, the angrier the human leaders became. The hegemony had not just destroyed Earth, they had erased humanity from galactic history. It seemed like humans had never been important at all. All the achievements of human civilization, all the art and science and culture that had been created over thousands of years, had been wiped away as if it had never existed. But the hegemony had made one critical mistake. They thought they had killed every single human in the galaxy. They had no idea that hundreds of thousands of humans had survived on hidden colonies, quietly building new lives among the stars, while staying out of sight of the powerful alien civilizations. We have an advantage they do not know about, Dongwu said as he looked at the faces of his crew around the bridge. They think we are extinct. They are not watching for us anymore. They are not prepared for us to fight back. Yuna looked up from her communication station, where messages from human colonies were still arriving. Captain, what are we going to do? Dongwu stood up and walked to the large viewing window that showed the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there, the aliens who had destroyed his people's homeworld continued to live their lives believing that they had successfully eliminated the human threat forever. We are going to prove them wrong, he said. Agent Kong Sora walked slowly down the long hallway of the hegemony's central archive, her modified face showing no emotion as she passed the alien guards. The surgery had been painful 5 years ago, but it had been worth it. Her human features had been carefully changed to look like an Arcturian, with the pale blue skin and large black eyes that were common among that species. To anyone watching, she was just another archive worker finishing her late shift. The Central Archive on Procyon Prime was the largest library in the galaxy, containing the complete history of every known civilization. Massive towers of quantum storage banks reached up toward the sky, holding billions of records about planets, species, wars, and discoveries. Sora had spent 5 years learning to navigate these endless rows of data storage, slowly gaining the trust of her supervisors and access to more sensitive areas. Tonight was different. Tonight, she had finally gained access to the restricted sections where the hegemony kept their most secret files. Her heart was beating fast, but she forced herself to walk at a normal pace as she approached the security checkpoint. The alien guard barely looked at her identification card before waving her through. Sora made her way to Storage Bank 7 Alpha, deep in the underground levels of the archive. The air was cold here, kept at low temperature to protect the sensitive quantum storage crystals. She could hear the soft humming of the storage machines as they constantly organized and reorganized the vast amounts of information stored within them. Using her access codes, Sora began searching through files that few beings in the galaxy had ever seen. What she found made her feel sick to her stomach. The hegemony had not just destroyed Earth. They had been systematically eliminating promising civilizations for over 10,000 years. The record showed species after species that had been marked for termination. The Deltans, who had developed faster-than-light communication technology in just 50 years. The Kepler Collective, whose medical advances had allowed them to extend their lifespans by centuries. The Andorian Federation, who had created artificial intelligence that could solve complex mathematical problems. All of them had been destroyed. All of them had been erased from galactic history, their achievements stolen and credited to the elder species of the hegemony. Sora's hands shook as she copied the files onto a hidden storage device. She found detailed reports about Earth's final days that were even worse than what Sujin had discovered. The hegemony had spent years preparing for humanity's destruction, carefully studying human biology to create diseases that would kill quickly and spread fast. The engineered plagues had been released simultaneously in major cities across Earth: New York, London, Tokyo, Seoul, Mumbai, all hit at the same time with biological weapons designed specifically to target human DNA. Within weeks, billions of people had died, their bodies falling in the streets faster than they could be buried. But the diseases had not been enough for the hegemony. The records showed orbital bombardment ships taking positions around Earth, waiting for the biological weapons to weaken human defenses. Then came the attacks from space, massive energy beams that turned entire cities into glass, nuclear weapons, that created craters where forests had once grown. The worst part was reading the hegemony's cold, scientific language as they described the destruction. They wrote about human deaths the same way they might write about cleaning pests from a garden. There was no emotion, no recognition that they were ending the lives of billions of intelligent beings who had families and dreams and hopes for the future. Sora forced herself to keep reading. She found communications between hegemony leaders discussing whether the extermination had been complete. They had been worried that some humans might have escaped on colony ships or hidden bases, so they had sent search teams to hunt down any survivors. But the search teams had given up after a few years, reporting that they had found no trace of human activity anywhere in the galaxy. The hegemony had declared the human species officially extinct and had moved on to monitoring other developing civilizations, while Sora worked in the archive. Other human agents were carrying out their own dangerous missions across hegemony. Space, on the industrial world of Altair 4. Kim Tae-sung had spent 3 years working as a maintenance engineer in a weapons factory. Tonight, he was carefully placing small explosive devices in key locations throughout the facility, timed to go off after he had safely escaped. In the Centauri system, Limnare was using her position as a communications technician to intercept hegemony military messages and redirect supply shipments to the wrong destinations. Every delayed weapon shipment or misdirected troop transport would make the hegemony a little bit weaker when the time came for humanity to reveal itself. Other agents worked in shipyards, government offices, research stations, and military bases across 17 different star systems. Some had been in place for years, slowly working their way into positions where they could gather intelligence or cause damage. Others had arrived more recently, sent by the human colonies after receiving Sujin's message about the discovery. On Kepler-44b. Sora finished copying the last of the files and carefully erased all traces of her access to the restricted archives. As she walked back through the quiet hallways toward the exit, she thought about all the civilizations that the hegemony had destroyed over the centuries. Thousands of species that might have contributed amazing things to the galaxy, all eliminated, because they had shown too much promise. But the hegemony had made one critical error. They thought they had been thorough in destroying humanity, but they had underestimated human determination and cleverness. The survivors had not just hidden and waited to die. They had built new communities, raised new generations, and prepared for the day when they could make the galaxy remember that humanity would not be erased from history. That day was coming. Soon, Admiral Hong Jin-soo stood quietly on the bridge of the Incheon, watching the stars through the main viewing window. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, preparing for the most important battle in human history. The Incheon was the largest warship that humanity had ever built, constructed in secret over 10 years inside a hollowed-out asteroid far from any alien trade routes. Around the flagship, hundreds of other human ships waited in formation. Some were sleek fighters built for speed and stealth. Others were massive cruisers, armed with weapons that combined stolen hegemony technology with human engineering innovations. All of them had been built in hidden shipyards scattered across the galaxy. Using materials and knowledge gathered by human agents over decades of careful planning, Jinsu had been preparing for this moment his entire life. As a young man, he had listened to his grandfather's stories about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests that had been destroyed by alien weapons. He had trained as a pilot, then as a tactical officer, and finally as a fleet commander, always knowing that someday humanity would need to fight back against those who had tried to erase them from existence. "Admiral," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Park Hyujin, "all fleet commanders are reporting ready status." Jinsu nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice would be heard on every human vessel in the fleet, from the smallest scout ship to the heaviest battle cruiser. "All units, this is command," he said, his words carrying the weight of centuries of hidden anger and determination.
Ow.
Today we stop hiding. Today we remind the galaxy that humanity is not extinct. Operation Resurrection begins now. Across 17 different star systems, human ships that had been waiting in dark space suddenly activated their engines and began moving toward their targets. The attacks had been planned down to the smallest detail, with each strike force hitting their objectives at exactly the same moment to maximize confusion and prevent the enemy from coordinating their defenses. In the Rigel system, Captain Yoon Sung-ho led a squadron of fast attack ships toward the massive communication hub that served as the primary relay station for hegemony military communications in that sector. The station was protected by powerful shields and defensive weapons. But Sung-ho's ships were equipped with new stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to alien sensors. "Target locked," reported his weapons officer as they approached the station, firing solution ready. "Fire," Sung-ho ordered. The human ships unleashed a coordinated barrage of energy weapons and guided missiles. The alien crew inside the communication hub had only seconds to realize they were under attack before their shields collapsed and explosions tore through the station's interior. Within minutes, the primary communication relay for 3 entire star systems had been reduced to floating debris. At the same time, Commander Nam Guyun was leading her battle group against a heavily defended weapons depot in orbit around Altair. The depot stored enough military supplies to equip an entire hegemony battle fleet, including the advanced plasma cannons that had been used to destroy Earth's surface. Goon's ships approached from multiple directions, using the gravity of Altair's moons to mask their approach. When they opened fire, the alien defenders were caught completely by surprise. They had been expecting possible attacks from other alien species they were in conflict with. They had no idea that the extinct human race had somehow returned, with weapons that matched or exceeded their own technology. "Direct hit on the main ammunition storage," reported Gion's tactical officer, as explosions rippled across the surface of the depot. Secondary explosions are spreading throughout the facility. The weapons depot erupted in a chain reaction of explosions that lit up the space around Altair like a second sun. Decades' worth of stored weapons and ammunition were destroyed in minutes, leaving the hegemony forces in that region without the supplies they would need to fight back effectively. Similar attacks were happening across hegemony space. Human ships struck supply bases, communication relays, shipyards, and military headquarters with precise timing and overwhelming force. Each successful attack was followed by the same broadcast sent on all frequencies throughout the galaxy. The broadcast began with Dr. Kim Soo-jin's archaeological evidence from Kepler 44b, showing the alien records that described humanity's supposed extinction. Then came the stolen files that Agent Kang Sora had retrieved from the Central Archive, revealing the full scope of the hegemony's crimes against hundreds of civilizations over thousands of years. "For too long, the galaxy has been controlled by those who destroy any species that shows promise," the broadcast declared. "The hegemony has erased entire civilizations from history, stealing their achievements and claiming them as their own. They thought they had completely destroyed humanity. They were wrong." On planets throughout the galaxy, alien citizens watched in shock as the broadcast revealed the truth about their history. Many species discovered that technologies they thought had been invented by the hegemony had actually been stolen from civilizations that had been wiped out long ago. Others learned that their own ancestors had been manipulated and controlled to prevent them from advancing too quickly. The hegemony's leadership tried to jam the broadcasts and send out their own messages denying the accusations, but the human attacks had damage to many of their communication systems. The truth was spreading faster than they could contain it. Admiral Jinsu watched the tactical displays on his bridge, showing the success of the simultaneous attacks. Every target had been hit, every objective achieved. The sleeping giant of humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. "Phase 1 complete," he announced to his fleet. "All units prepare for Phase 2. It is time to show them what humans can really do." Admiral Hong Jinsu stood on the bridge of the Inshin as it approached the capital world of the hegemony. Through the viewing window, he could see the ancient planet where the elder alien species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The planet was surrounded by defensive stations and protected by the largest fleet of warships that had ever been assembled in galactic history. But Jinsu was not afraid. Around his flagship, hundreds of human vessels moved in perfect formation, their crews ready for the battle that would decide the future of every species in the galaxy. More importantly, the human fleet was no longer alone, Admiral reported. His communications officer, "We are receiving signals from our allied forces. They are moving into position as planned." Jinsu smiled as he watched new ships appear on his tactical display. The broadcasts that had revealed the hegemony's crimes had reached every corner of the galaxy, and dozens of oppressed civilizations had decided to join humanity in their fight. For freedom, the Centaurian rebels arrived first, their sleek silver ships reflecting the light of the system's star. The Centaurians had been one of the first species conquered by the hegemony centuries ago, their advanced mathematics and engineering skills stolen and claimed by the elder races. Now their descendants had built a secret fleet of their own, waiting for the chance to strike back at their oppressors. Behind the Centaurians came the Tausetians, an aquatic species whose bioships looked more like living creatures than machines. Their vessels were grown rather than built, using organic technology that could repair itself and adapt to different combat situations. The hegemony had forced them to remain in their ocean worlds, never allowing them to fully explore space travel even. The mysterious vegan collective had sent representatives to the battle. Their crystalline ships moved through space without any visible engines, powered by energy sources that the hegemony had never understood. For generations, they had been treated as primitive beings who could only create simple tools. But their technology was actually far more advanced than anything the elder species possessed. "All Allied fleets report ready for battle," announced Lieutenant Park Hyojin from her station. Jinsu activated the communication system to address the combined fleet. "This is Admiral Jinsu to all Allied forces. Today we fight not just for our own species, but for every civilization that the hegemony has destroyed or controlled. Today we end their reign of terror forever." The hegemony fleet moved to intercept them, led by massive battleships that were thousands of years old. These ancient vessels had been designed to intimidate younger species, rather than fight actual battles. Their weapons were powerful, but their defenses were based on outdated technology that assumed their enemies would be too frightened to fight back effectively. The first exchange of fire lit up the space between the two fleets. Hegemony ships fired their traditional energy weapons, beams of plasma that had destroyed countless worlds over the millennia. But the Allied fleet had learned from studying captured hegemony technology, and their ships were equipped with shields that could deflect or absorb these attacks. The human ships responded with weapons that combined stolen alien technology with human innovation. Captain Yoon Sung-ho led a squadron of fighters that moved too fast for the ancient hegemony targeting systems to track. Commander Nam Jun's heavy cruisers unleashed missiles that could change direction in flight, making them impossible to intercept with conventional defenses. The Centaurian ships used their mathematical precision to calculate perfect firing solutions, their weapons hitting critical systems on enemy vessels with devastating accuracy. The Tausetian bioships released swarms of smaller organisms that attached themselves to hegemony hulls and began eating through the metal armor. The crystalline ships of the vegan collective simply passed through the enemy formations like ghosts, their weapons somehow targeting the internal systems of hegemony vessels without appearing to cause any external damage. Enemy ships simply stopped functioning as their power systems mysteriously failed. The battle was fierce, with explosions lighting up the darkness of space and debris from destroyed vessels, creating dangerous obstacles for the surviving ships. But it quickly became clear that the hegemony fleet was not prepared for this kind of coordinated attack from multiple species working together. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "the enemy command ship is trying to retreat." "Do not let them escape," Jinsu ordered. "Today we end this." The combined Allied fleet surrounded the remaining hegemony vessels, giving them no choice but to surrender or be destroyed. Within hours, the battle was over. The fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was nothing but floating wreckage and captured ships. In the weeks that followed, representatives from dozens of liberated worlds gathered on the hegemony's former capital planet, Dr. Kim. Sujin, the archaeologist whose discovery had started the rebellion, stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly in the same chamber, where the elder species had once decided which civilizations would be allowed to survive. "For too long," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the Great Hall and broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "Fear has determined which civilizations deserve to survive. The hegemony convinced us that rapid development was dangerous, that species who showed too much promise had to be eliminated before they could threaten the established order." She paused, looking at the representatives of species that had been oppressed for generations. But diversity is not a threat. Innovation is not dangerous. The galaxy is stronger when all species are free to grow, to explore, to create, and to contribute their unique gifts to our shared future. The Assembly voted unanimously to establish new laws that would protect developing civilizations and ensure that no single group could ever again control the fate of entire species. The age of the hegemony was over, and a new era of cooperation and freedom had begun. Humanity had indeed written the final chapter, not of their own extinction, but of a dark period in galactic history that would never be allowed to return.